Well, hello and welcome to Binge Watch, the podcast where we take a look at the hottest new TV and film releases on streaming television platforms. I'm Hannah Fernando, the group editor of Woman and Woman and Home magazine.
And I'm Ian McEwan, writer on TV and Satellite Week, What's on TV and TV Times magazines. And today we're looking at the new releases that will be available on Friday, the 11th of October 2024, including a second series of courtroom drama Showtrial on BBC iPlayer starring Adil Akhtar and Michael Socha, and Kate Blanchett and Kevin Kline in the gripping revenge thriller Disclaimer on Apple TV+.
We'll also be checking out crime thriller Curfew, starring Sarah Parish as a homicide detective and Kevin Hart as a 1970s Atlanta hustler in Fight Night, the Million Dollar Heist on ITVX. But first, Ian, what is in the news?
Netflix's 7-part adaptation of John Steinbeck classic East of Eden, about the challenges faced by several generations of the Trask family in California, will star Florence Pugh. What else is in the news, Hannah?
And in Apple TV Plus drama Margot's Got Money Troubles, starring Michelle Pfeiffer and Elle Fanning, a cash-strapped student falls pregnant and starts a successful OnlyFans account, of course, as you do. Isn't that what all the kids are doing? Which takes inspiration from her ex-wrestler father.
Well, it's drama all the way on this week's episode, Hannah, starting on BBC One and BBC iPlayer, arriving Sunday the 6th of October. It's Series 2 of Showtrial, and here's a clip.
Marcus Calderwood, activist and author, is about to be arrested for the 21st time.
Calderwood identified me before he died.
Why did he identify you?
I don't know.
A cop who smashed his car into a guy trying to save the planet?
Allegedly, he's still entitled to a defence.
I don't think we should touch this.
So I don't know if you saw the first series of this legal drama, Hannah. It was about a posh girl called Talitha, really well played by Celine Buckens, and she was on trial for the murder of a fellow student. Now, Showtrial is back, but it's a new case and new characters. It's about a trial that kind of catches the public imagination, and it touches on quite topical themes. A climate change campaigner is involved in a hit-and-run collision, and he names a police officer called Justin Mitchell, he's played by Michael Socha, as the driver who hit him before he dies. Justin engages a solicitor called Sam Malik, and he's played by the brilliant Adil Akhtar, who is instantly recognisable. And he tends to play slightly kind of quirky characters, and certainly in this it's the old trope of often it's detectives that have to have a troubled private life, isn't it? But in this case it's the solicitor. The cop is very cocky and arrogant and claiming to be innocent. Anyway, it's going to build towards the actual courtroom drama, which you will see being played out. And I actually went on set for it, and they built the entire courtroom. It looks amazing. I don't think it's perfect, but Socha and Akhtar, I think, play off each other really well. And it sort of touches on the tactics used by activists to draw attention to issues like climate change. You know, people like Just Stop Oil, for instance, blocking off roads. But what does that mean? Could it mean like an ambulance couldn't get through to a hospital and as a result someone died? So all these sort of ramifications. It's quite cleverly done, I think. I would say it's worth a look. What did you think, Hannah?
It feels kind of topical in some ways, doesn't it? Because we see lots of activists at the moment doing things that don't seem right, all in the name of something that we probably agree with in terms of environment or whatever it might be. And this feels sort of like it hits the right mark, I think, in some ways. And the funny thing is, though, is that obviously in this situation, this victim has been knocked off his bike. It's a bad situation, and naming this police officer puts him in the dock. But I think the bit that kind of really is really, it's infuriating to watch and kind of gets under your skin. It's just how conceited and how kind of arrogant this police officer is. Doesn't probably help police generally, to be honest with you. But then there are snippets of vulnerability, snippets where you see, that perhaps it is just all bravado and this was all just a bit of a show. Because on the surface, he doesn't seem worried at all about this possible conviction or the fact that he won't be cleared. But yet he does employ a solicitor who does have a history of winning cases against the odds. And again, we've all heard of lawyers like that, haven't we? Particularly, I mean, it's separate, but ones where people are speeding offences, and you hear of the lawyers that are able to sort of get people off those tickets. So for me, it felt very, very topical and engaging for that reason alone. I thought it was pretty good.
We move across to Apple TV Plus for another new drama series arriving on Friday, the 11th of October. It's called Disclaimer, and here's a clip.
All these years, you have concealed parts of yourself from the world.
To a beacon of truth. Somebody who inspires me every day.
You keep everyone in the dark to maintain a balance. And you think you have succeeded.
Yeah, this is what I would describe as quite deep. I wouldn't be cooking the dinner at the same time. You sit down and really kind of get involved in this, because there's a little bit of toing and froing, and it centres around this documentary maker, Catherine Ravenscroft, who's played by Cate Blanchett. And it's incredibly dramatic. It's absolutely, obviously, Apple TV Plus production. It feels very rich in content and kind of delivery, really. And Cate Blanchett absolutely lives up to the character that she plays, which is kind of multifaceted, really. Now, as I say, she is this documentary maker. She's at the height of her career. She's accepting awards right, left and centre, and achievements in her field. And she's, it's her moment. But, like with everyone, they're kind of built up onto a pedestal, or they're at the top of their game. And there's, round the corner, there's a fall. And in this instance, that's exactly what happens. Now, it's basically her past catching up with her. So this is the trouble. There's her and her family and what she's doing and, living her best life. And then there's this other family. Now, this then centres around a teacher called Stephen Brigstoke, who is played by Kevin Kline. And he's got fired. He's not in a good time of his life, the polar opposite to her. And he's just in a complete demise, really. And you see him going through he's really low. He starts to go through all his late wife Nancy's belongings. It's 9 years after her death, so he's taken a while to get to that. He's still wrapped up and enveloped in grief. And he finds this handbag of quite erotic photographs of Catherine, the documentary maker, taken by their son, who had died 20 years ago in a drowning accident. Now, he digs deeper. He uncovers this manuscript written by his wife about their son and Catherine's encounter, and then he starts to blame her for his son's death. So he writes this manuscript. He wants revenge. He's just seeking revenge. And he sends it to her of exactly what's happened. Now, she's looking at this and she's thinking, hang on a minute, this sort of looks a little bit like my life. And of course, he's probably put two and two together and made five. But she wants to keep him at bay. She doesn't want her life ruined. And this is what you're seeing here, is sort of a cat and mouse situation of her trying to keep him quiet. He wants this to be in the public domain about somebody who is so a celebrity, I suppose, so well known, a well-known name. So there's lots of different kind of layers and levels to this. But as I say, it's a real proper production, and it hooks you. It's quite gripping from the very beginning, I think. And seeing somebody who is a documentary maker kind of, intrinsically linked with the press, I suppose, media, and then having this person sort of suggesting that they might do something to threaten that, and the lengths they might go to stop that from happening, because of their own life being destroyed in the process. That's the bit, it completely hooks you. So I thought it was really good. Ian, what did you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And of course, the title disclaimer, so that's what you often have, as people will know, at the beginning of a book or a TV series of a film, that usually says any resemblance to persons living or dead is entirely coincidental, or you know, it might say based on a true story, but things have been changed. So yes, you can see the link there. And also it starts off with, she's receiving an award for her TV work, Cate Blanchett's character, and there's all this stuff about there's a sort of voiceovers that kind of, the gist of it is, don't trust narratives, you know. So it's telling you, it's sort of flagging up to you, be careful whose version of events you believe in this, because you kind of sort of see it from different characters' perspectives. And then we sort of cut to this young couple who are on holiday in Venice, and I have to say they're really annoying, but you know, we were all young once. And so that we think, oh, okay, who are these characters? You know, what's going on here? And yes, as you say, it turns out that it's this teacher's son. It was him on holiday with his girlfriend, and so the pictures are from the holiday, but also there are these pictures of Catherine, Cate Blanchett's character. So it's like, what happened? Good to see Kevin Kline. Of course, I suppose people will think of him largely as a comedic actor, and like he was an absolute tour de force in A Fish Called Wanda, wasn't he? He was just larger than life character, really going for it comedically. And yeah, in this, he's a sort of depressed teacher. He basically, the first time we meet him, he pretty much sort of, well, he's called in to be disciplined by the head teacher because of something he said to a student, and he just decides to throw the towel in, really. Yeah, he's depressed. He's in his house. He's sort of wearing his dead wife's pink cardigan, and yeah, so really good to see him. And I got to say, they're great. You've also got an interesting supporting cast. You've got Sacha Baron Cohen, aka Borat, and other comedy characters. So he plays Catherine's husband. He's a bit of a dick, really. And then you've got the wonderful Leslie Manville, who is the late wife, Nancy, the teacher's late wife, and we see her in flashback. So, and these flashbacks to what happened in Italy is all very kind of colour saturated and beautiful and sun kissed. So that's nicely done. So yeah, I found it intriguing. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. Over on ITVX, arriving on Monday the 7th of October, we have another new drama series called Fight Night, the Million Dollar Heist. And here's a clip.
This will turn our little city into a major one. We are a vibrant, inclusive city that's open for business.
I got a right to see my daughter.
Find a decent place, and we can talk about you being in her life.
Looking for some extra bread. This is more money than we all pulled in a year. You just here for the money.
I don't think you boys got any goddamn idea who you stealing from.
This is an 8-parter based on a true story, disclaimer, and it's set in Atlanta in the 1970s, and it stars comedian and occasional actor Kevin Hart as a hustler who kind of runs a numbers game, sort of betting organisation. He's called Gordon Williams, but everyone calls him Chicken Man, okay? And he sees a chance to kind of establish himself in the criminal underworld because Muhammad Ali is coming to town for a boxing match, and there's a lot of controversy around him because he avoided the draft and didn't want to go to Vietnam. And sort of mobsters from around the country are coming, including the big man, Frank, played by Samuel L. Jackson. And Chicken Man says, well, look, I'll organise a sort of after-fight party for all these mobsters, and you know, I'll put on the entertainment. Little does he know that meanwhile there's a plan afoot to stage a heist at the event, and that essentially he's going to end up being the fall guy. It's got a bit of a blaxploitation feel and look to it. It's also quite Tarantino-esque, I feel. You get Samuel L. Jackson at the very beginning putting a gun to someone's head and sort of quoting the Bible, which is virtually straight out of the beginning of Pulp Fiction, isn't it? So, but I like Hart as an actor. I think this is the best thing he's done. I mean, we've seen him in things like Jumanji, haven't we? I mean, he's very good at comedic roles. This is slightly different, and he's well cast because he comes across as he's the little guy who kind of runs his mouth a bit and kind of, is probably making bigger plans than he's able to pull off. But he's very convincing in it. Jackson, of course, is always watchable. There's a really strong supporting cast, including, you got Don Cheadle. Fantastic Don Cheadle plays the local detective who is told, even though he's got a massive caseload, he's told, you've got to be Arlie's bodyguard. And you see Arlie in it as well. You've got to be Arlie's bodyguard during his visit. And then he ends up working on the case, of course. So I'd say it's not perfect. I'd say it kind of loses focus from time to time. And there's, you have to keep reminding yourself of who everyone is. But it looks great. The 70s fashions and the cars and the music, everything's spot on. And yeah, I think this is, in terms of acting work, I think it's the best thing he's done. What did you think, Hannah?
Well, you mentioning the sort of 70s, outfits and cars and everything, that's kind of what I was focusing on, really, because it's absolutely brilliant. It's kind of bright, isn't it? And it absolutely kind of, I don't know, it just sort of makes this whole thing. But I thought Kevin Hart was really good as well. And I think that there are areas where I would agree it kind of loses focus, and I suppose it just feels a little bit samey to stuff that we've seen before. But equally, I think he plays the part really, really well. And you kind of feel really sorry for him, which you sort of shouldn't as well. I find myself in that sort of difficult position, which I often do, thinking, why am I feel sorry for the real baddie? But, you don't, because actually he's trying to do something and just all goes horribly wrong because, of course, he's fraternising with the wrong people. And it's just action-packed, isn't it, really, from beginning to end. And you see a whole, I suppose, part of society or underworld that you don't really know exists that perhaps does. And for my very green eyes, it opens them, Ian.
Okay. We're going to finish on Paramount Plus with our fourth and last new drama series. It arrives on Thursday, the 10th of October. It's called Curfew, and here's a clip.
Britain has become the first country in the world to introduce a curfew on all men.
That's the issue being debated in the House of Commons today.
We hold men accountable now.
Women feel safe.
Emergency services, single victim, female, early 30s.
That level of violence. Only a man could have done that.
Yep, so this is quite a provocative thriller. It is season 1, as you say, and there are 6 episodes. And this just made my heart race from the very beginning, because it just feels so in the job that I do, we talk a lot about women's rights and, feeling safe on the street and being able to walk out without feeling vulnerable all the time. And, essentially the force that can be used by a man over a woman. But I appreciate this is sort of a singular lens, but we write quite a lot of articles about that kind of thing, and the fear of, as I say, that women have when they go out in the evening, shouldn't be alone. We should really be able to be alone, shouldn't we? But we can't be a lot of the time. It's a very difficult subject area. But this is brought all into one in this Paramount Plus series called Curfew, and it's based on the novel by Jane Cowie, and Sarah Parish plays the part. She's absolutely brilliant at this no-nonsense DI, Pamela Green. And she's called to investigate a woman who's been brutally murdered during the night, and she's been left on the steps of the Women's Safety Centre. Now, this is really pertinent because at this time, they are living in a world where men are on curfew from 7 in the evening until the following morning, and they're tagged. So that, you know, you see at the very beginning of this, of the first episode, this girl going and taunting these men. I mean, it's quite awful to watch. Actually, I found it very, very uncomfortable to watch these men sort of behind glass. You know, they're not allowed to come down. She knows essentially they can't come down and hurt her. But if one of them comes out of the house at that time, that ankle tag goes off. As I say, they are curfewed from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. It's quite unbelievable, and it's incredibly strict. So within seconds, the police are there and they're taking those men away. And the idea is that it makes the streets safer for women. Now, as you could imagine, and understandably, this is not cool to lock every man up from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And this is causing, you know, huge uproar and civil unrest. And so the pertinent point of this brutal murder outside of this women's safety centre, Sarah Parish, who plays DI Pamela Green, is convinced that it's a man that's done it. And they're saying it can't be, because all men were locked up. This can't be the case. But she's absolutely determined, and she's got her own... she's got her own issues. I mean, at the beginning, you see she's quite bruised down her back. There are a few scenes that let you know that some things aren't great for her. She's also seen some pretty awful things, and she does a brilliant job of that trauma, I think, being etched across her face. She looks almost grey with the pain that she must see and the horror of what she has seen, and even she saw in with this latest murder. And she said, she feels that her gut instinct says that this killer is definitely male, and she's not going to rest until he's caught, despite them finding somebody who says it was them, and that's a woman. So you can see, you can just see this all kicking off. Now, there are some familiar faces in here. I'm sure they just raided EastEnders cast, really, because you have Lucy Benjamin, Bobby Brazier, Anita Dobson, Larry Lamb. There's a few different faces in here, and also Alexandra Burke, her first foray into the acting world. She plays the teacher, and she, do you know what? I quite liked her in it, actually. She's quite authentic. There's a bit of flip-flopping in this, a bit of toing and froing, but actually, as I say, it's really pacey, and it's sort of knocking on the door of something you think, oh, this couldn't really happen, could it? It couldn't possibly really happen. It's quite scary, and just all the time, jumpy is the word I'd use. Jumpy. You always feel at any moment that something might just happen. There's a lot of angst in it. The youngsters are upset. There's men in prison. It's just literally kind of this knife edge, on this precipice. I actually, from what I've seen of the first episode, I'm hooked. I want to watch it all. This feels like a binge watch to me. What about you, Ian?
I think it's a great premise, because, as we know, violent crime is usually committed by men. But I think they've tried to make it a very realistic present-day setting, so that you've got Dan Walker on the news, and the curfew has been approved, blah, 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 and you've got Jeremy Vine talking about it on his show. Well, I think it would be better if it was a more sort of typical dystopian type treatment, in that it was, I don't know, in the future, or a rather different reality, because it's meant to be so very much like life today, apart from the curfew. You just keep thinking, well, they would never introduce a curfew. it would never get through. It doesn't look that convincing. So that opening scene you're talking about, where these girls are riding around in one of those annoying rickshaws with the loud music and the fairy lights, but there's not a soul anywhere else on the streets, which is slightly odd. And then this one guy who's kind of been looking at them out of his window, he suddenly appears on the street, and the police turn up because they've all got electronic ankle tags. So as soon as they go out of their homes, the police are alerted, and he's sort of confronting this woman who'd been sort of taunting him in a way, and he's going to attack her. But then he's saying to the police, "What? I was only just outside my front door." I said, "Well, yeah, but you were assaulting a woman." So I think it's fair enough. I felt kind of like some of the dialogue was a bit clunky, really. A bit expositional. But I love Sarah Parish, and she's always good. And as you see, as you say, she's kind of got that very strained expression in this. So I really like the idea. I don't think it's perfectly realised, but I just think it's interesting enough to check it out. So yeah, I would say have a look. Now we've got to that time, Hannah, where we find out what you've been binge watching for the last week.
Well, you won't, I'm not here to disappoint you, Ian, because Married at First Sight UK literally grabbed me last night. I mean, it was honestly off the chart. I just was flicking around and I thought, I've got to watch this. It never fails to amaze me. And the other thing I need to do in a world of where there's not a lot of good news right now, I turned over to Gogglebox, and do you know what? That never fails to impress either, does it? Absolutely hilarious in places.
I would say the same thing about First Dates, Hannah, which I think it gives you a little bit like Gogglebox. It just gives you a snapshot of modern Britain. And I watched an interesting one-off true crime documentary about the case of the Menendez brothers who lived in Beverly Hills with their wealthy parents, and they killed them both with a shotgun. So yeah, that's worth a look. Enjoyed is probably the wrong word, but yeah, it was very interesting. Now we've just got time to look ahead to next week. So what's on the binge watch menu, Hannah?
Well, Lenny James plays a dapper London pensioner leading a double life in the new BBC drama Mr. Loverman. I nearly broke out into song then. Stop, Hannah.
And David Tennant and Alex Hassel wage war in Rivals. You'll be doing this one. Jilly Cooper's racy tale of money, lust and power on Disney+. So we look forward to those and much, much more. But in the meantime, listeners, keep watching.